Hi there. World Cup is going on and it's already semifinals right now. This time there are two pairings. First one is Esipenko Wei Yi, and the match we're gonna discuss today. And second one is derby between Uzbekistan players Sindarov and Yakuboyev. To be honest, I already kind of got tired of World Cup because before it used to be 128 players, and this was like okay, right now enough energy and fuel to watch the whole World Cup. Of course, we're not talking about the players who need to play for such a long time, so many rounds. And yeah, it's like right now increase the number of players to 206 was probably too much. But still, we're in the semifinals. We continue our videos related to the sim, and in the Uzbekistani matchup, Sindarov managed to go to the finals. He won on tie breaks versus Yakuboyev, and Yakuboyev will play for the third place. But we are interested in the game of Wei Yi versus Andrey Esipenko, because Wei Yi before eliminated strong, one of the favorites of the tournament, Arjun Yerigaisi, and we have a video on our channel about it. There will be a pop-up notification somewhere. And he faced Andrey Esipenko, who, like in the previous round, beat Sam Shankland, who was playing amazing tournament. Yeah, it's like Wei Yi has a rating lead and overall in top 10, and my sympathy was definitely on the Wei Yi side. But yeah, Wei Yi has never been to candidate tournament before, even though he's like pretty promising, and from all the kind of young kids, to him it already doesn't relate because he's like 27 or something. He was, yeah, one of the new generation of this like computer kids and players. So let's begin. First, we will analyze first classical game between Wei Yi and Andrey Esipenko. And right here, Andrey surprised Wei Yi. He played d6, after d4, d5, knight c3. Here there are two main continuations in this position. It's either knight f6, where people usually play a5. During this World Cup there were many games right here. And second one is another variation, which is bishop b4, which leads to even sharper positions. Right here, D was the move. I used to play it myself and pretty successfully, but I mean, you can't play such move too often because you can be out prepared. But right here, Andrey shows his like prep, definitely surprising Wei Yi. And right here, there is a huge choice what to do for white. Many options like bishop g5, bishop d3, taking, which happened in the game, and right here, many deviation, sharp, positional ones. Wei Yi choosing the most the most standard way of playing bishop d3, which does not provide white with sharp positions or great attacking chances if black knows what they're doing. So there were like couple better options. For example, one of them is bishop e3, which stops c5, which Andrey will play in this game later, as you will see. And then usually white is trying to go to the castle lawn, or there is an option like c3 with a clever idea of try and jump to e5 after this move, where there is an interesting battle going on. There are like more strategical ideas like g3, but I'm pretty sure Esipenko was prepared to all of that. And Wei Yi choose a pretty rare continuation, which happened recently during the European chess team championship, if I remember correctly, in the game Korobov Berkesh. And right here, black plays queen c7. Idea is try to go c4. White plays queen e2 exactly to stop it, to not let black see space. Black plays a6 to prevent any checks. And right here, Wei Yi, after some thinking, decides to go h4. He already down 25 minutes to Andrey, and h4 is a typical engine idea. We push in the pawn. Why? Who knows, but some variations will show that it's right. Before this h4 idea, which hasn't happened that much in practice, castle was the main move. Castle on is not great because b5 is a very good response, and after castle short there are two main continuations, knight d5, which engine doesn't like that much, and b6, which normally equalizes. I don't know which one Andrey would choose because both are totally possible. The only like line that is interesting, I know, looks like this with such cute bishop rotation, but it doesn't lead to the victory by any means. But yeah, that's like standard theory before. Right here, h4 did not surprise Andrey. He plays knight d5, castle, bishop d7, and here was the critical moment where Wei Yi needed to lift some great continuation by White, because in the game he played king b1, which is a default move, but it doesn't lead to any advantage at all. Instead, the move that White should opt is knight g5, which is very aggressive, direct, straightforward, intimidating, looks a bit dumb. You might say, okay, I can attack the knight with the pawn, like what you got, what's your point? But here comes queen h5, and after queen h5, idea is that taking here is dangerous because we're gonna take on h8 and win the rook. Playing g6 is a suicide mission, because after that there is definitely gonna be or a mate or a huge material loss. And the main line right here is bishop e7, queen f3, attacking f7, and black right here need to play a bold move, which I'm pretty sure was in the prep. Castle on. Right now knight f7 doesn't really work due to rook f8, and it's very hard to unpin. Probably queen f7 is a better option. I try to move it a little bit for white and black, and right here it's possible to do a threefold repetition if white doesn't want to really fight, but white 2 pawns up, so they probably would like to fight, and it leads to a very imbalanced position where black is trying to go after white's king as quickly as possible. There is another continuation with bishop f6, trying to get d4 pawn, but yeah, like all of that are pretty interesting lines. I don't know if Wei considered this move, maybe he didn't think that's enough. He played king b1, and super easily black right here equalizing. f6 was played to prevent any knight jumps, and right now actually I would choose black over white, because not so clear what to do for white. Yeah, okay, we have slightly better development, but black's king definitely gonna go long. Bishop pair is not a joke, position more or less open, so it's hard to really utilize the knight right here since it doesn't really have any outposts. After castle long, Wei Yi continues trying to fight for initiative. Maybe h5 was better, objectively trying to fix the weakness on h7, because playing h6 would be ridiculous, because g6 will be a hole that knight could use. But Wei Yi played g5, trying to again look for some activity, bringing the rook to the open file, bishop c8, take, c3 to reinforce the center, and right here actually black trying to use long range pieces, trying to create pressure, trying to use trying to find some attack against some hooks in the position, like h4 pawn, but right here Wei Yi managed to stay alive, even though, I don't know, I would be scared to play this position as black, because you're playing against the bishop pair, against opponent who can definitely utilize this advantage, and for white needs to be very accurate to defend. Good for Wei Yi, he's like a great player, and his defensive resources are pretty amazing, because right here after rook g4, he plays h5 defending the pawn, and Andrey goes after the pawn with rook h4, then queen can join from f7, plus the rook can go to h2, pretty dangerous move. But after knight c5 here there is no bishop pair advantage. Yeah, white has several weaknesses, but here comes rook f4 offering a trade, which is not amazing, because after this trade this pawn will be weak, and the square in front of it is also a hole that white could potentially use, and right now initiative already goes to the white's territory. And after rook h3 that happened in the game, this pawn is under attack. Rook d4, another trade offer. Andrey going rook g8, looking for some counterattack, but Wei Yi strikes in the middle, and here he spot amazing defensive resource, because after queen h5, it looks like the rook is hanging. If it didn't look like to you, then yeah, it's like be careful with your hanging rooks, always watch out for the last move of your opponent. But here Wei Yi plays bishop a6. Idea is that it's very dangerous to take ba, because we might have like really good attacking ideas, and the king is absolutely open. And here with the forest line, it was a perpetual, because right now king cannot run away from checks, despite the fact having an extra rook. So this was the first draw. Second game in the classic, Wei Yi played black. It was Petrov's defense, super boring. Esipenko again had bishop pair, but again couldn't really do anything with that. Wei played pretty good game, but the game was like without any action. This one also, I wouldn't say an action movie, but still it was like pretty interesting. Okay, so now first game of the tiebreak. It's a rapid 15+10 where Esipenko is playing white. And what do you think? Again, there is Petrov's defense, pretty boring. This tournament is like Petrov's defense is everywhere. I don't know, it's like, I don't understand. I mean, I understand why people play it with black, because it can guarantee you a draw if you learn all the lines. But the lines are so boring. I don't know, it's like, that's one of the reasons why people say chess are dying, because everyone plays again and again this Petrov without looking for any interesting ideas, without trying to change the game, look for a counter play with black, try to get an interesting position. Everybody is afraid to lose. So, knight c3, one of the sharp lines. Idea of white is try to slightly spoil the structure, which I don't really consider as spoiling, to develop quickly and castle long. And in the classical game, they already had this line, and Esipenko, in my opinion, making a mistake because he played exactly the same line second time. I don't know, like bishop f4 is overall not the best move. Plus, I mean, Wei Yi definitely repeated everything after classical game, which he shows in this game. So, I mean, maybe he ran out of idea after all of this long exhausting tournament, maybe something else, but definitely Andrey could find something better. Wei Yi right here plays a line that usually another Chinese player, Yi, plays very often, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but from my experience I have like these vibes that yeah, he definitely does play it. And right now both sides castle the same side. Andrey probably expected okay, wanted Wei Yi to go to the castle short where he could start attacking him on the king side, but with the same side castle kings, it's way harder to attack. After bishop b5, there is some idea of trying to take and attack 2 pawns at a time. Also, there is an idea of playing knight d4. That's the reason why Chinese grandmaster plays a6 instantly, bishop a4, rook e8, knight comes to d4, and here comes the opening prep, which is b5 instantly without almost thinking. Again, Esipenko with the bishop pair, but everything is still in the prep for Wei Yi, and here Andrey started thinking, because he was probably out of the book, and he played bishop d5, and after c6, bishop f3, knight c4, black got enough compensation and even started fighting for some advantage. Instead, the best move for Esipenko was g4, which is pretty logical because you like pushing the pawn up and trying to attack your opponent with your pawn. And let's say after knight b3 ab, idea is to try to lock down this bishop so that it couldn't move, therefore it's harder to contest the open file, and white in the meanwhile could try to use weaknesses of black. Plus, I mean, pushing the pawns in front of your king is not always the best idea, and right here white could really use it. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Wei Yi had something in mind, but I mean, I would choose white here, frankly saying, because I mean, we have some activity, our king is way safer. There were some other options how to play, like queen of 6, try to keep waiting, but this line in comparison to the line that Esipenko had in the game, this pawn on g5 doing fine job preventing any bishop of 6 moves, and this bishop g4 threat is no joke. After bishop d5, here knight c4, bishop, okay, queen d4 anyway happened, bishop of 6, that's what I was talking about with the pawn on g5, this would never happen. And right now, white decided to play queen c4, which after bc, bishop g4, this was not like a queen sacrifice, so nothing terrifying yet. The game transferred like this, where black has like a slightly better position because of some space, slightly better pawn structure. But we'll talk about that. Probably it was better for Esipenko to trade slightly differently. Maybe I don't understand it, but I mean, to my taste, it would be a lot easier to play for white, no problems whatsoever. This pawn is hanging, black needs to play h6, the knight is not really dominating the bishop at all, so I mean, there wouldn't be any problems. But Esipenko thinks slightly differently than me. And he goes for this line, taking, and right now Wei Yi has a really nice pawn chain. I for some reason love it, because right now black can start the pawn storm and with this avalanche can try to get some good results. Bishop e3 was played, and here very cool move by Wei Yi, which I probably myself would consider, but maybe I would not dare to play it. He goes a5, which looks pretty logical from one side, because a threat is a4 and then a3 to shatter the pawn chain and try to get some goods, but obviously white can play a4, and right now this pawn is fixed on the color of the bishop, which is usually better for white, of course, because black would have to guard it, but the idea is that it's very hard to eat this pawn, because the bishop might get stuck after some c5, and that's like a very cool understanding by Wei Yi. He plays king d7, kinda inviting Esipenko over for this idea, but Andrey doesn't go for it. Rook b8. Rook right now attacks this pawn, and for white it's very hard to play b3 every single time, because black has a lot of control over there. Rook e1, Wei Yi continues improving his position and developing an advantage, trying to take even more space. King b1 e4, there is a direct threat, but Andrey plays really nice chess by preparing b3 with the king on a2. King from c1 couldn't prepare b3, king from a2 can easily do it. After rook e8, white goes for an undermining maneuver because f2 pawn was backward, and right now we can ruin the pawn chain. And after bishop h4, rook e2, bishop g3, white plays b3, kinda fulfilling all of these mini tasks that they needed. And after bishop e5 move, this pawn is hanging, and white probably could just take on e4, trade some pawns, and that should be sufficient for a draw. Yeah, the king is a little bit weird, but we always have bishop a3 move to cover b2 square if needed. In the game, instead, Esipenko plays rook e3, and right here a weird thing happens, because bishop f4, rook e2, bishop e5, rook e3, players just repeated moves, and this was a draw. And Wei Yi thought about, is it worth it to repeat moves, or it's not really worth it to repeat moves. But actually, this position was winning. One tiny move, which is super logical, which is rook e3, just defend this pawn on c3 that was hanging, wasn't indeed a mistake, because after bishop d6, white has huge problems defending this position, because if, let's say, they take, this king starts running, and for example, after king b2 right here, it looks like white catches up, but no, after cb, rook b8, this is what's called principle of two weaknesses, because the pawn on b3 is now hanging, and the king infiltrates, and it's very hard for white's king to control two targets at the same time. And bishop b6 attacking the pawn also doesn't really help, because after c5 this bishop gets trapped, or at least out of the game for a while, and black can continue advancing on the side they are actually stronger. There is a cute line, if I'm not miscalculating, like that, where the pawn is out of reach of the rook, because rook cannot magically teleport for f1. To f1, so that's an idea, and Wei Yi misses the win with the black pieces, which would guarantee him future pass, but for us, for viewers, it's of course more interesting, because intrigue is going on, and this is a final game that we're gonna analyze today. Maybe you know who already won, but this is something like incredible. If you haven't seen this game, stay tuned in, there are gonna be huge drama exactly in this game. Wei Yi is playing white, this time Andrey does not surprise him, he plays e5, which he normally plays, if I remember that correctly. White and black tries to develop, typical Italian. H6 move is against any bishop g5 ideas, which are popular nowadays, especially Firouzja playing it a lot, but the main disadvantage of this line is that b4 starts working. White cannot really win this pawn, because there might be some consequences because of the counterattack in the center, but white really nicely grabs some space. Funny enough, today with one of my students we analyzed almost exact same variation, almost exact same position that could occur in his game. And right here, Wei Yi plays bishop b3 with an idea to prepare knight c4, because this bishop on b6, ideally the bishop wants to get to a7 in one move when it stands on c5, but because Esipenko chose this line, the bishop has to overcome larger distance. To my taste, I probably like more h3, where most likely the game will go in a similar way, but to my taste, white's positions are better. Or let's say after bishop e6, this sort of positions could occur where white is trying to attack on the queen side or in the center, black is trying to go for some sharp play on the king side. Usually it's better for white. But okay, Wei Yi knows definitely a better series than me, so I would not argue right here. Plus, it's the most widespread move, so why am I complaining? Knight c4, bishop a7, bishop comes to e3, playing b5 too early maybe not that amazing, because we should always watch out for a discovered attack like bishop f2, not now, but somewhere in the future for sure, maybe even right now. So Wei Yi plays bishop e3, which is a top engine line, and after that it looks like, again, typical slow Italian position where white has slightly less space, but black's position is very solid, it's very hard to break through. Wei Yi plays knight e3, because this knight can go to different squares from this position, plus we might prepare like d4 in the future, so like pretty useful move overall, because b5 right now will not really cause that much damage. And right here, probably Esipenko just needed to play d5, try to fight for the center. I don't see really any problem with that. After potential trade, we could possibly try to place all of our pieces in some battery on the e-file, but I don't think really there is big deal. So right here, queen d7 was the move, and Wei Yi missed a possibility how to get an advantage. Here he could actually try to go bishop c2, which looks counterintuitive with moving away from an active position somewhere in the back. But this bishop in the back doing great work, because we are preparing d4, where we can threaten a fork to two pieces, and the bishop from c2 can really provide us with it. And the engine here recommends bishop g4, which is pretty insane move, because you're giving up the bishop in open position. So yeah, right here, like white could have some advantage. Instead, Wei Yi plays a5 after some thinking, trying to fix the pawn chain and prepare the plan that you will see just now. He decides to go for c4 and have some control over the center, prevent black from breaking through in the middle, and maybe prepare d4 on his own. Probably the best move order would be something like that, slowly but surely improve, take space, and somewhere look for the right opportunity to strike. Wei Yi chooses slightly different option, and after knight g6, knight f5, Esipenko found great resource, which was d5, breaking the center, releasing the tension, making the defense a lot more, I don't know, simple. Let's say after c4, d, queen c6, attacking the pawn on e4, white must retreat to defend this pawn with queen c2, black goes king f8, might look like a very dumb move, but it actually against any possible knight e7 moves, plus if rook gets traded on the d file, it will be an endgame where the king could be useful, plus somewhere knight e7 move, and already like king is kinda closer. But later Esipenko probably regretted this move, because he went back. Right now he's fighting for an open file. Chinese Grandmaster right here goes rook d3, trying to triple or double, and after rook d3, queen d3, he takes control over open file, and white has like tiny advantage. Magnus Carlsen would win probably everyone right here with white. He won thousands of games right here. I guess this like position of the dream for Carlsen, but Wei Yi, I guess, also not complaining. Queen trade looks again counterintuitive, why we're trading queens if we're playing for a win, but the idea is that we can occupy the open file and our knight is heading to c5 if it ever possible to get there. Knight f8, rook d1, and f6. Black is preparing maneuver to the center, because king is one of the key pieces when we talk about endgames. And right here, Wei Yi going for a pretty direct idea, which is b5, which weakens c5 a lot, but he tries to ruin the pawn chain of black, make some weaknesses, open up some additional files to infiltrate, or maybe force white to take. which of course makes sense, and it's very hard to choose the plan when you have so many great possibilities right here. Engine recommends something like h4, trying to fix the weakness on g7. Black must play h5, and after king g2 knight e3 threatening knight d5, black goes rook c8, f4. We are taking space again, slowly, step by step, trying to eat piece after piece after piece to get the full control over the board. Like, more squares you control, the better it is. There is a famous saying of Korobov, at least to me it's famous, when he played against Caruana. To win the game you need to control 64 squares on the board. Against Fabiano I controlled only 40, and it wasn't enough to win, because the game ended in a draw, as I remember. So b5 happened, king f7, knight goes to e3, rook c8, knight goes to d5, so this knight is heading to b4 to exactly force black to take. So as I said, Wei Yi is a quite concrete player, reminds me of a computer from this angle. And right now more and more kids, especially like from India, playing exactly like that. And right here, Esipenko finds great defense. He just plays king e8, knight b4, and he simply ignores everything. He's just in time to play knight e6 to defend the pawn on c7, so that if Wei Yi decided to win this pawn, then after rook a8, this pawn might be really in danger, and not only the pawn, but the knight. Let's say if knight tries to go to b4, after rook b8, two knights on the same file, so the knight can fall. In the game, f3 happened, Wei Yi decides to centralize the king, Esipenko brings his knight to the outpost, Wei Yi instantly kicks him away with rook d5, ba, king e3, g5, stopping f4 because this could be an idea of white, and this position objectively is a draw. Engine show 0, and if, let's say, players, for example, played knight c6, knight d8, and trying to repeat moves, that would be easy. With knight b7, knight c6, it would be the same. Or let's say white at least played some king d2, most likely it would be boring draw, and we could see more action in the next 10+10 play between the both players. But right here, Wei Yi decides he deserves more, he plays c5, trying to go for c6, rook d7, knight d5. But Esipenko say, no, not with me, rook b8, knight takes on a6, and rook a8, so he's winning the pawn back, and right now it turns out that Wei Yi is the one who's behind, he's like runner-up in this battle, because Esipenko starts pressuring him, he attacks this knight, rook goes to b5, and knight comes to d4, so this pawn is weak, very difficult spot. And look at Wei Yi's time, it's like 36 seconds, which is super low, and position is very difficult. Here I actually thought that Wei Yi would lose. Like little spoiler, but okay. And right here, the best defensive resource was insane king f2, here, giving up the pawn completely, but trying to eat the pawn on h6 later, and right now our king is absolutely safe. Plus later we have knight d5 idea, but I'm not so sure that lots of grandmasters would find this right move order in the classical chess with enough time. So Wei Yi plays the most natural knight d5, and here he kinda started like letting the game go, because right now he still could play rook f8 or rook h8, which would be probably better. It would lead to some really complex position somehow like that, where, I mean, computer says that white more or less fine, but it's very hard to believe in it without two pawns. So he goes knight f6, rook a3, king d2, knight f3. Right here, probably king e2 would be better to stay closer to the king side. Instead, he went to the queen side, and after king c6, rook h8. Right now, white is down a pawn, but second pawn is also hanging, and here, this was the moment where Andrey could have won, but to win this game, you need to or have like some super amazing calculations or huge balls, because Esipenko just decided to eat the pawn, which many of us would do one way or another, take with the knight or take with the rook, looks pretty logical, but it actually, I mean, helps white survive. Instead, the best idea is king c5, where after rook h6, king goes to c4, trying to go for some mating ideas with knight d4, and approximately it looks like that, where white's position is very dangerous, pawn starts moving, and even though we don't have any extra pawns, we have amazing activity, although I would not recommend playing king d3, because there is knight before fork, so better of course not to blunder that, but still. Instead, rook a2 happened, rook h2, knight g4, here, and Wei is down 2 pawns, but he has enough activity right here, and here he actually chose poorly, because he needed to play king e3, g4, rook e8, but no way you find it with 20 seconds on the clock, because it's not concrete, it's nothing like that. And when you're in the time trouble, you need concrete threats, which Wei Yi creates, because right now he's threatening some knight e7, knight d5, trying to win the pawn, which would most likely guarantee him a draw. And right now, Esipenko plays king b6, trying to run away. By the way, king b6 is the move that kinda, again, equalizes the position. Instead, after rook a2, position is winning, because right here black has a very cute trick, eating the pawn on e4 instead of the pawn on c7, and with 2 pawns that are almost connected, this would be a win for black. Instead, he plays king b6, here comes knight e3, and look at the time of Esipenko. I don't know if you saw the broadcast, he actually hung his rook above... hang his hand above the rook, so he wanted to play some move with the rook because his rook was hanging. I don't know, maybe probably he realized that it's hanging, but then he thought, okay, knight d5 is the threat, it's very scary, and right here, like, unbelievable thing happened, because he played c6, Wei Yi in a second took the rook, and that's how you kinda lose the match. I would say eliminate it, but Esipenko will play for the third place, which will guarantee the spot in candidates against Yakuboyev, but that's insane. I mean, I understand that this is a very rough tournament, World Cup, that's super exhausting, and everything can happen, but yeah, that's like, I mean, that's very sad and disappointing for Esipenko, but I'm happy that Wei Yi going to the finals. Finally, I will see him in the huge tournament like Candidates tournament. Esipenko will play his match against Yakuboyev, as I already said, and Sindarov will play against Wei Yi, where only, like, I mean, title and money would matter. However, in the game between Uzbekistan player and Esipenko, there would be a huge thing at stake. And that's it for today. Pretty interesting games. I mean, devastating ending with such blunder. It doesn't really happen that often in, like, I don't know, 1000 rated players. But yeah, it's like on top level, everything can happen, especially when it's so much tension between the players. Comment down below who you think will win the World Cup. At the same time, who will go to the candidate tournament, Yakuboyev or Esipenko, who do you support? I did like overall World Chess Cup, and see you in next episodes. For today, this is it. Bye.